the Italian Football Podcast.
Right. Next question comes from Gianni Rizzo, who says, after the injury to Bremer, what are Juventus transfer plans for January? Well, they're definitely going to get a central defender. And I think it's hilarious because when we started talking about last week, I think we had a question about Skriniar potentially rumours starting. Or we didn't have a question on Skriniar. I think we suggested Skriniar. Or was it someone who said, I can't remember. But we had a question on what about
Somebody
Skriniar?
suggested Skriniar.
Yeah, someone suggested, what about Skriniar? And the next day, the rumour started.
Yeah, and also I suggested Rugani. And then the next day,
of course,
Rugani's name started being mentioned as well. I mean, listen, my understanding is that Juventus are going to try to sign two players in January. One will be a centre-back and one will be a centre-forward backup to Dusan Vlahovic. When it comes to the centre-back, when it comes to both players, they don't have much money to spend. So they're going to be looking at really loan options or very, very cheap kind of signings. That's what they're going to be looking at. When it comes to the centre-back, the names that have been mentioned are Skriniar. Skriniar would have to be a loan, and also he's on, I think, 9 million a year at PSG, so PSG would have to subsidise.
Yeah, net. He's on 9 million net a year.
Well, there you go.
I mean...
so PSG will have to subsidise a lot of that if that's going to happen. He's not playing there. He is fit. So, I mean, that's an option. Another cheap option is Rugani. Can they arrange to get him back from loan? He's at Ajax. He's on a 1-year loan there. Can they bring him back mid-season? That's an option. Ardian Ismaili from Empoli. He's had a really good start to the season. He's an option. He's a cheapish option because I believe his contract expires at the end of the season. So they might be able to get him on quite a lowish transfer fee. And the question is obviously with Rugani and with Ismaili is, are they of the level required? Are they of the good enough level for Juventus? As for Skriniar, I think if he can, the questions are: is he past his best? Is he going to be fit? Is he kind of permanently cropped? There's all those question marks. Or they go for a younger option, and the two that we mentioned are Hato of Ajax and Leclerc of Crystal Palace. Now, these are the main names that have been looked at the moment, but they don't have much money to spend, so they're going to have to, it's not going to be anywhere close to Bremer. put it that way. So those are the centre backs. As for the centre forward, they need a backup. They've only got one striker, and that's Vlahovic, because Milik is injured. He's always injured, and they need to bring in, and he's not in the plans of Motta anyway. And they need to bring in somebody to give an option, because Vlahovic has played basically every single game so far, and they need other options. The options that we mentioned are Jonathan David, but I believe, I understand this is not possible because he's a non-EU player and Juventus don't have any space, so they could only sign him, I think, on a Bosman at the end of the season, which they might still look at doing. And there's a lot of clubs interested in him, Inter as well, and Premier League clubs, and I think there'll be a lot of clubs after him on a Bosman at the end of the season. But I don't think he's actually possible. So the main names that we mentioned are Arnaud Kalimuendo, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Beto, the last two of Everton. And Kalimuendo is at Rennes, and he's a player that I've seen a bit of him, and I like him. I like his potential. I think he's quite adaptable tactically, and he can play a kind of a number of roles in the attack. And he's somebody that Thiago Motta is. Apparently, Thiago Motta wants him. He's who Motta is pushing for. Motta coached him in the youth team at PSG, and he would really, really like to sign him. And he's quite young as well, 22. Question is kind of like, what would the transfer fee be for him? Because he's got a decent record in Liga. He's scored 25 goals in the last 2 seasons and the start of this season. So he's a decent level, around 50 goals almost in Liga. So he's a decent level player for his age. And so I think that's who Motta wants. Otherwise, yeah, there are these two Everton options. Beto is not playing for Everton; he could be available on a loan, and Calvert-Lewin's contract expires at the end of the season, so he might be available cheap again, quite cheapish. So these are the names that have been mentioned so far.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather bring Rugani in until the end of the season than waste money on anyone else. Skriniar, I don't think Juventus. He's what, 29, 30? He's had some. It feels like his body's falling apart, doesn't it? A little bit. But I do think he would do well. I mean, if he's fit, I think he would be able to do well. But he won't be cheap, and PSG want to get rid of him, so there's actually a good possibility of that happening. But I think Rugani would probably be the easiest one for them, just to bring everything until the end of the season and then decide what they want to do. As for the attackers, I just don't see Beto, Calvert-Lewin. That doesn't seem very realistic to me. That would seem like a failure. Jonathan David, I don't think he's coming in January, but I think for the summer, I think we'd all know that there's lots of teams interested in him, no? Including Juve. And Inter, of course, as well. Because Inter, of course, are going to lose Correa and Arnautovic next summer because their contracts expire, and they're going. And as I correctly predicted, PSG are looking to break the bank for Marcus Thuram. So Inter are going to need at least one striker, probably 3 or 2. So Jonathan David, Inter are very, very keen on him. Yeah, I don't see him moving in January. I'd be very surprised unless like some crazy offer comes and he can't say no. But other than that, I just don't see Jonathan David leaving in January. I think that's more of a free transfer for next season. But yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's I'm with you on pretty much all of that. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I still think that Rugani might be the one they want to bring in just to make up the numbers, and also he knows the club, he won't cost a lot, and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But like you said in last summer, it's gonna take time. Like this is going to have to be a gradual build because Juventus can't fix all their problems in one window, and they have been unlucky with this Bremer injury. It's just devastating. As for the striker issue, Vlahovic is a difficult one because he scores a couple of goals, then he's like horrible, and then he's really good. It's like we're looking for that consistency. Where are we? I still don't know. I think I'm still very much on the fence with Vlahovic. I still think this is make or break season. But I don't know where I am in terms of how good he's been or not good, how good he's not been, if you know what I mean. I think it's difficult to give him.
Yeah, he needs to show consistency. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, he really does.
But also, even if he does show consistency, you can't have one striker for the entire season when you've got 50, 60 games in a season. You need a backup. So they need somebody regardless.
No, they absolutely do. But I mean, thinking Milik could be that backup is a bit. Why'd they sell Moise Kean then, or Moise Kean? Like, what was the point? Like, but then again, they needed money as well. So yeah. But I mean, like we said last summer, it's going to take a couple of windows for them to fix this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that's what it is, but I have no doubts as to the fact that they will fix this. I think there's it's just going to take a bit of time. And I think it's going to take a little bit longer time now with Bremer's injury. Yeah. But then again, I'm not, when he returns Bremer, I'm not too worried about him because he doesn't, yes, he's a quick, he does rely a lot on his pace because he's a quick player and he allows you to play with a higher line. But he's not like a winger. He's not like a Chiesa where like that's such an important part of his game. He can still be a physical defender and read the game and be aerially strong and be great at man marking without having explosive pace. So I think they'll be fine. I just hope they don't rush him